Hello everyone. For this video we're going to be talking about using checker.py. So this program is something that you need to use for a lot of the projects in this class. You also need to use it for project 1. You can do the code for project 1 without checker, but actually seeing how you'll be graded, seeing if your program is working correctly, and testing your program is we use a program called Checker. Now, the code for this is actually on OneDrive, so you can actually see how it works. The actual functions in this program are not necessarily things we've talked about yet, so you don't need to understand this code. In fact, the only things that you need to do in this file are change these first 3 lines, which is what we're going to talk about today. So what we're going to try and do today is use checker to check for this function and see if it's working correctly. This is a function that we looked at in the videos on functions.py file. And we did some tests manually somewhere. I guess we just did one test. Did we not do others? I guess we didn't do others. Okay, so we're going to make some tests for this. So what do you need to run checker? First thing you need to do is you need to change the name of your file. So to change the name of your file, we're going to right click on it, we're going to go to refactor, and then rename. Because the way checker works is it's only going to check Python files that have checker in the name in all caps. And also you need to list whether we're working with a project or a homework. That's more for just organization purposes. So you either need to say H for homework or P for project. If, like for project 1, you would say P1 checker. You could put functions in there if you want, but you also need to have your name, first name, last name. So something like this. So these 3 things are always what you need. The either project 1 so P1 for project 1, or H1 for homework 1, or P3 for project 3. You have checker in all caps, and then you need to have your name, both your first name and last name. Then you can hit refactor, and that'll change the file name. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2, any function that you want to test needs to start with FOO underscore. It has to be at the start of the function. So why do we have to do that? Well, checker is only going to check functions in your file that start with FOO underscore. We just call it foo. The reason we use foo, the word foo, is it comes from more like traditional programming to use this word as like a placeholder. So that's all it really is. If you want to look into it, there's lots of different theories of where it came from. Maybe it came from World War II, maybe it didn't. So when we run a checker, we're only going to end up checking this function, even though we have other functions in here. We also have that function we worked on called find related. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3 for setting up checker is we need to change these first 3 lines of checker. You don't have to know how this program works. All you have to know is you got to change not the first 3 lines, but these 3 lines here. And it's pretty easy to change. All you're going to do is take your the start of your file name, and you'll see it pops up here, so you can just press tab. And what I like to do is I'll just copy paste this here and here. So the last one here is a string, so make sure you keep the quotes on the outside, and there we go, it's all set up. So that's all you have to do to set up your files. For the homeworks and projects, I will give you the unit tests to run with checker. But for this, we're going to kind of talk about how the unit test files work, so that you can see what the symbols are, and that way you can make your own as well. For an example, we'll look at some files here. So this is what the files should normally look like. They have two things in them. They have the input values that are going to go into the function's parameters, and then you'll see this word expected, which is the label for the return value, or return values, plural. The pipes here separate different parameter values, and that's pretty much it. Now this is, you can see here we're just using whole numbers here. If we look at a different example, we'll see you can have decimals as well. So these do handle multiple data types that are interpreted from these text files here. You can have negative numbers. Here we have parameters that are decimals. You can have Boolean values. Capitalization doesn't matter, so make sure you get that correct. If we go to later projects that we'll do, what do we got in here? Oh, that one's empty. Okay, not what I want. Maybe I should go to homeworks. Surely one of these has, here we go. Later we'll look at lists, and for lists we will separate elements in a list using commas. And here you can also see when we have multiple return values, they're separated by commas as well, no spaces. If you have a list with only one item in it, you can have that as well, but you have to use the comma to show that you have a list. So this is a list with one value in it. But if you took out that comma there, then it would think the first parameter is a whole number, not a list with a whole number value. And I know we haven't gone over lists yet, but we will. Ooh, here's an empty list right here. I was searching for strings, which we will also use. Well, here we have strings. I wonder if this is the updated version. I thought you had to have quotes. Also strings. I don't remember, actually. So we'll just ignore that for now. So let's make some unit test files for this function to test. So how do we do that? We would just right click, we'll go to new, we'll say file. The unit test file names should match the project name here. So if you look at our files here, you could see, oops, guess that's fine. They start with unit tests, and then you say the homework or project number, and then the index. So starting from 0 going upwards. Whoops, did we make our file? Doesn't look like it saved that. So we'll make a new file. So we'll call it unit tests. This is project 1. And this is file number 0. And we're going to say .text so it knows it's a text file. Okay. So now we just have to make a bunch of tests, anything we want to see for this function here. So this function was computing whether your number is has multiple digits or not that are the same value. So in our test we could do something like, all right, 33, our expected value here would be that there is multiple digits, so we'd expect true. Wait, true if the number uses multiple digits. Sorry, that would be false. Okay. For something like 12, we'd expect true. 77 or 99, that's also false. Something like 7 has has multiple digits, that does not have multiple digits, so we'd expect false there, and maybe one of their tests that uses true. Let's see. Something that uses multiple digits. I don't know, could be anything. 70, or how about 82? We'd expect true, right? And that's a unit test file. So we're running 5 different tests. The way checker works is if you pass all the tests, that's 100%. If you pass less than all the tests, you're losing points per test. All right, and that's run checker. So to run checker, we just go to the file, we press the play button. Looks like we're still running the other parts of the script, which is why we don't want to have things outside of functions. Has multiple digits. We changed the name here, but we're also using our test here. So let's just comment this out. We'll just comment this guy out. We'll try that again. All right, and this is what you're going to get for running checker. So you have to enter the assignment number. This is P1 for project 1. And then you'll see the test run. Look at that. The expected value that we put in the unit test was equal to the actual output value of all of our different tests here. You can see the function that's tested, so you can test multiple functions at once. If you have multiple unit test files, and you'll see the score here, 100 out of 100, hooray. So what does it look like if we don't pass a test? Let's try to break something. We either break our code or make some bad values for the unit tests. Let's try and break our code. What if we did an equal sign here? Greater than or equal to. Would that break anything? So we take our number, we divide it by 10. So if it's like 72, we get 7. So this would always be true, right? Unless our number is negative. So if this is always true, we'll never get an instant, our tests for single digit values will fail. So that's what this should change. So now when we run this, we say P1, and it looks like we failed one of our tests, the 4th test. So when you test your code for the first time, you're probably going to fail at least one test. Because most of us are not experienced programmers in the class, right? Or it's hard to think of every possible data, or to know that your function is going to work for every possible test. So do expect that when you run this, you're going to have some tests that have failed, which means you got to think about the data that's being input, and then figure out how, where did your code fail based on that data. So what I would do is I would say, oh, the 4th test failed. Let's look at the data. The 4th test would be 7. This one right here, right? This one we expected false, but since this test failed, that means our program got an output of true. So I would go to my code here and say, okay, somehow this is being triggered for the value 7, the input of 7. So let's see. If we have 7 divided by 10, that's equal to 0. Okay. So fine so far. If our number mod 10, so that's a 7 is equal to our 7 divided by 10, well, that doesn't work because 7 is not equal to 0. So we are hitting this return true, but we'd expect false. And why do we expect false? Because 7 does not have multiple digits, right? It only has one digit. So I know that somehow I need to return false based on this value. And hopefully I would be able to figure out that this if statement is not doing what I want. When we take 7 divided by 10 and we get 0, this is like a separate case where we should just return false for any single digit number. So then when we run this again, we test our code, we'll see that we now pass that test. So how do I grade your projects? Basically, when you turn in your projects, you just turn in your Python file. If for later in the semester, when we're working with images or sounds or other things, you'll also turn in those assets. But I only need your Python file. So when you're in your project folder, do not turn in things like, actually I don't even see it here. I don't need your source files or anything from that. Well, I don't need your virtual environment folder. I don't need your entire project folder. I just need your Python file, because I'm going to take it, download it, and then I'll run it with checker. And whatever score you get is the score that you'll get for your project. And this is like percentage based. So if your project is worth 30 points and you get an 80, you take 30 times 0.8, which is 24. So you get 24 out of 30. So the way this works is you should know what grade you get before you turn it in, right? Because checker tells you exactly what grade you're going to get. I'm not grading any project or any homework that uses checker. Like, I don't add anything to that. It's just completely based on these tests and passing them. Now, there are some exceptions. If you are trying to dodge around some of the tests and do something using hard coding, well, that doesn't count. These have to be programmed not using hard coding. So I'll check for that. Another possibility is I also run another program called check plagiarism. And this is a program that I'm not going to tell you how it works, because then you would be able to try to maybe get around how it works. But this checks for plagiarism for people sharing code with other people in class, and potentially other things. What it doesn't do is it doesn't check for AI use. That's just checked by me manually. Now, AI, of course, is getting better. However, I'm still able to see very quickly whether you have used AI or not. And if I suspect that maybe you used AI, I will ask you something about your code, and you should be able to understand how it works. So it is possible that you use AI and you understand how it works, and then maybe you'll be able to answer my question, and then you will get the points. But for me, I don't have a problem with that, because if you understand the code that used AI to help you write, well, you're learning, right? That's good, and you're able to get the answer. So I still don't recommend using AI, because if there's anything that you're not understanding, then that's not good. Also, if you're just relying on AI, you might be able to get points on the projects, but you have to remember in the class that once we have quizzes and tests, that's worth 70% of your grade. So I really care that you are able to do it yourself. And since the tests and quizzes are on paper, AI will not be an option. Yeah, so that is how checker works. And we'll continue to use checker for really any application that doesn't use images. So that'll be for most of our projects, and we'll use images and sounds and things towards the end of our semester when we're using other packages like Pygame. Okay, and that's it for this video.